Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to episode 10, mashallah, our 10th episode for our show Kickstart Your Recovery. I'm Bara al-Dasuqi with Purify Your Gaze, and today I'm going to share with you, inshallah, some tips about hit the speed dial when you're struggling, all about cultivating a relationship of support, encouragement, and accountability for those moments where you feel tempted, you feel the urges, and you need somebody to reach out to, inshallah. I'm going to share some characteristics of this type of relationship, who you can, what you should look for in somebody who you want to have this type of support from. And also, I'm going to share with you 4 tips, inshallah, so that, even if you don't have this, perfect, ideal relationship in your life right now, you can still use these 4 tips to start cultivating that as soon as you get off this show with me, inshallah ta'ala. One thing I want to share before we dive right into our discussion is that if you want to get notifications anytime myself or anybody else on the PYG team goes live with one of these videos, then just, in Facebook it allows you to do that. Just click on, somewhere in the top of the video, you can click on live, subscribe. Maybe if you click on the arrow, maybe if you're on your phone, it's a little bit different. You might have to click on follow, but there are some options that allow you to get a notification anytime we go live with these, so that you're aware that we're doing this and you can join us, inshallah, on the live show. So bismillah. Now, as we get started here, I want to first ask a question. What I want to ask is, why do so many of us find it so difficult to reach out for support when we're struggling? Now, I think most of us can agree that it's not the easiest thing. When you're having a hard time, you'd like everything to be perfect, but sometimes they're not. And when that's the case, it's not the easiest thing to reach out to somebody. Now, why is it so difficult for us? And I think that there are a few reasons. For that. I mean, for one, when you reach out for support, when you're vulnerable with somebody, it's uncertain. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know if they're going to understand. And you don't know if you're going to be loved and accepted. After all, you're sharing your true self with somebody. Are they going to accept that? Are they going to love you still? Also, a lot of us, we don't feel like I want to rely on other people, or that I don't want to be so needy of other people. We feel like, we're supposed to be able to handle the situation on our own. Right? And also, needing others, sometimes, we're like, I want to reach out to somebody, I want to have that support, but it's just like, I don't want to be a bother for this person, and I'm reaching out for support, and I have nothing to offer back. Right? So sometimes it makes us feel very small, that we need others and we want to reach out for support, rather than us being the one who's helping others. A lot of us want to be in that helping position, but it makes us feel small and insignificant when we're in the asking for help position. Now, despite all of these, reasonings and hesitations about reaching out for support when we need it, when we're alone, I want to share something that I find fascinating from the seerah of our Prophet ﷺ that shows that he was actually very deliberate in enlisting the support of others, other human beings. Yes, he relied on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and surrendered to Him, but he was also very deliberate, and he worked very hard to enlist support when he needed it. And specifically, when this is very prevalent in his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is after a number of years where he was giving the da'wah in Mecca. Things were getting worse over time. People were accepting Islam, but the hostility was getting bigger. And after a number of years, his uncle Abu Talib, who had been granting him protection, who was his the tribal leader who had granted him protection to stay in Mecca and live in Mecca, he passed away. And his other uncle, Abu Lahab, inherited the position of tribal leader, and he was not as supportive of the message. He was not supportive at all, in fact, and he did not grant that same protection to his nephew, the Prophet ﷺ. Now, what that meant is that for the first time, the Prophet ﷺ had no protection over his life in the place where he was. Right? Nobody was supporting him and granting him protection over his life for him to continue delivering his mission. And at that time when he was quite alone, he didn't have the support that he needed. He immediately started working to get that support from other people. And one of the first things, in fact, the first thing that he did very soon after that is that, as many of you know, he went to Ta'if. He went to Ta'if after he no longer had protection in Mecca. He went to Ta'if to tell them, this is my mission, this is what I'm doing. Will you take me in? Will you adopt me? He's going to people, he's asking them, right, for support. He's asking them for support, right? And many of you know the story, things didn't go well in Ta'if, and they weren't receptive of his message, and so he came back to Mecca. Now he's outside of Mecca, he's not inside Mecca even, because he doesn't have protection there. And what he starts doing when he's outside Mecca, once again, he's alone in terms of needing that support and that protection, that visa to live among the people and spread his message. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what he starts doing at that point, he's not idle. He's still working hard. He's still deliberate. He's still reaching out to people. He starts sending messages into Mecca to the other tribal leaders, telling them, will you support me? Will you take me in? Will you adopt me? Right? And he's doing this. Right? And so I think this is fascinating. And the story continues that eventually one of the others do. Most of them say no, but one of them actually does take him in and adopt him and give him that protection that he needed at that point in time. And I think that this teaches us a lot and helps us to put into context our own hesitation to reaching out for support when we're alone and when we need support. Regardless, even if it's just on an emotional level, right? When we're alone and we need that support, we hesitate to do so. I think this really causes us to stop and question, why are we hesitating to do so, right? And we can look at the example of our Prophet ﷺ and say, look, when I need support, I better build it. I better seek it. I better reach out for it. Now, if you're somebody who hasn't worked to cultivate support in your life, you never really made that a priority to build a support network, first I want to say, I don't really blame you. I don't blame you because, a lot of times our society, it teaches us one of two things in many ways. On one side, it teaches us that, you need to be independent. You need to be self-made. You need to prove yourself. You need to earn your own achievements. You need to make it on your own. You need to be that hero, that lone wolf. That's on one end, and, we kind of see that in movies and things like that, and in just popular culture. We see people rising to the top, but we don't see all the support that allowed them to make it there. And on the other end, the other kind of extreme is that, that we see in movies and whatnot, is that the support, that emotional support that you need, is going to come to you in a nice little package, which is called your romantic partner, right? And in our case as Muslims, right, that means marriage for us. But basically that this is the answer to all of your worries and your fears and your frustrations, and that this one individual, your romantic partner, is going to make you happily ever after and alleviate all of your fears and worries. And these are kind of two things that we see in our society, and both are not representative of the reality of support. Now, what is the reality of support? The key point that if you take nothing else today, what I want you to leave with, inshallah ta'ala, is that the people who have support around them, right, the people who have the support that they need in order to fulfill their mission, in order to thrive, in the case of your recovery, in order to heal and to grow, they have it, and as a result of them cultivating it, as a result of them building it, as a result of them knowing that it's important, and so they work on it. And by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it builds and expands over time, right? So they proactively cultivate and build their support network. Now, if you're here and that's something you haven't done in your life, first, like I said, I don't blame you for that. And you don't need to blame yourself either, right? But rather, you're here, you're listening to this message. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you to listen to this message in order to recognize, well, all right, this is something that I need to do. I need to learn from the example of the Prophet ﷺ, and I need to cultivate. It's okay that if this is something you weren't aware of, in the past, now's the time. Now's the time. There's no better time than now to start cultivating support in your life and in your recovery. Now, relationships can be cultivated for a variety of different reasons and with a variety of different types of people. But, family, friends, leaders, coaches, counselors, all types of different support out there. But if you're somebody who's struggling with unwanted habits that are destroying your life, then a very important piece of your puzzle will be cultivating a relationship, that speed dial relationship that I'm talking about in this episode. All right, that speed dial relationship is that relationship where you can blow your own covers in that moment of temptation, right? You can pick up the phone and you can tell somebody, look, this is my reality right now. I don't want to indulge, but I feel the need to indulge. Or maybe I indulged a little bit, I need some help. Or maybe I had a terrible relapse and I need some help right now. You're blowing your own covers. You're shining light on that inner addict, that just wants you to stay in isolation. You're shining light on that. Now, why is it important that you have access to someone that you can speed dial when you're feeling the urge to indulge, when you feel like you're struggling? The reason it's important is that, the bottom line is that staying in isolation is exactly what, the addict inside and exactly what shaitan wants. Because when you are isolated and disconnected from others, that is exactly, the perfect condition for the addiction and the unwanted behaviors to thrive. Now, when you reach out to somebody, it helps you, one of the things it does, it helps you balance out the extreme thinking and reconnect you to reality. Oftentimes in those moments of urges and stress and anxiety, all of that is just so great and overwhelming. It just feels like the world is going to end, right? It just feels like things are so overwhelming. I know that you've experienced that before. It just, things are blown out of proportion. But 110% of the time, when things are so overwhelming and there's just so much anxiety and stress, it seems like the world is going to end. Every single time that you feel that way, the reality actually isn't that bad. But it's just that when you're in the moment, it just seems so overwhelming. But the reality isn't that way. And just talking with somebody about it can help reconnect you to reality, can help put things in perspective. And finally, the unwanted behaviors are so often used to comfort and solace, to find comfort and solace and love when you feel uncertain and you feel alone. Now, do the behaviors actually provide these things? Well, not in a true or lasting way, and in the end it actually leaves you feeling empty. But you need to ask, how will I find comfort and solace and love when I'm no longer going to tolerate these behaviors in my life? Where am I going to find this comfort from? And the answer, when you need comfort, the answer is to turn to support people. It's one of the most powerful ways to meet your needs in healthy, halal, and uplifting ways. Now the question is, who is it you're going to reach out to? Who is it you're going to reach out? Who is this person that you can speed dial, right? And you can share with them your struggles and you can blow your own covers, and so that you find that you make it out without having to indulge. Now, there are so many people you include in your support network, like I mentioned: friends, family, mentors, religious leaders, your spouse, a coach, or a counselor, and these people can provide encouragement, validation, guidance. However, our focus, again, right now is who can you have on your speed dial? Who can you contact to blow your own covers and say, look, I'm not feeling good. You want to? Now, for that type of relationship, for that type of support, the best option is somebody from within the recovery community. Somebody who understands addiction recovery. That's the best option. The process of healing and recovery. Somebody who kind of gets it. Because this type of person will combine three important characteristics that I'm going to share with you, inshallah ta'ala, that you want in somebody on your speed dial. All right? The first characteristic that's important is that this person is open-minded. that this person is open to recognizing that healing is a process, recovery is a process. They're open to recognizing that, even if they themselves haven't gone through it. At least they're able to empathize with you in what it is that you're going through. So that's number one. And number two, this person is compassionate, because you won't feel safe turning to somebody who you feel is not going to honor your struggle, who you feel is not going to appreciate that you reaching out to them is a big deal. Right? That's a big deal. So somebody should be compassionate enough to appreciate that. That's what you want to look for in somebody who's going to support you. And also, they are emotion focused rather than being just behavior focused. This is the third characteristic, because our goal ultimately is not to eliminate just the behaviors, but to work through the emotions that are going through, because there's always going to be emotions behind that urge and that temptation. So you want to be able to contact somebody, be in touch with somebody, and share with them some of those emotions, and that person will be open to helping you walk through and talk through what it is that you are experiencing and going through. Now, you might, think to yourself, well, who in my life combines these three characteristics? Who in my life, provides the open-mindedness, the compassion, and the understanding and the ability to focus on and talk through the emotions? And, I'll tell you, the need for that type of support is actually exactly why we started the Purify Your Gaze community. We recognize people need access to this type of support. And if you're not part of the community and you're interested, I encourage you to check out our website or just email us, info@purifyyourgaze.com, if you're interested in being part of the Purify Your Gaze community. But, if you're not part of the community and you just feel like, sheesh, but I don't have that type of person in my life, I guess that there's just no hope for me. Thanks for sharing that with me. I better, just continue struggling for the rest of my life. Remember that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and remember how he actively worked to build the support and to cultivate the support and enlist the support at a moment where he had no one. So even if you're in a place where you feel like, man, I just don't know who this is that's going to support me in this way, you can still start. You can still start thinking. You can still start looking around you in your life and saying, well, who has some of these characteristics? Even if not all of them, just some of them. Who can I get some amount of support from, right? As our Prophet ﷺ was actively and deliberately seeking out support, and we should do the same. I'm going to share with you 4 tips now, inshallah ta'ala, that you can use to get started today, even if you feel like you don't have that ideal relationship or you don't know who that person is. You can get started with these 4 tips, inshallah ta'ala. And the first tip is use what you've got. Use what you've got. Again, even if you don't have that perfect ideal relationship that I kind of described, it doesn't mean you can't utilize the relationships that you do have. You can open yourself up to the people around you. Even if you're not going to share everything, right? You can share, hey, I'm struggling. Work has been a little bit stressful. School has been a little bit stressful. Or there's some relationships that are challenging me right now. You might not be able to share everything to the people in your life right now, but at least you can start to open up a little bit. I'll give you an example. My close friends, they usually know when I'm going through a little bit of a rough patch and there's some things that are challenging me personally, because I'll see them at Jummah and, they'll say, hey, Assalamu alaikum brah, hey, how's it going, man? I'll tell them, alhamdulillah, man, I'm struggling. So I just say that, so I can at least be honest with them and tell them, things are a little bit rough right now, alhamdulillah, so they know. They might not know anything other than that. But at least I open myself up a little bit and invite their empathy and their support. So you can do those types of things. And also, tip number 2 is start by supporting yourself. Start by supporting yourself. Now, we often hesitate to open up to others because we're afraid that they won't understand us. And the truth is that they might not understand, actually. They won't always understand. But the thing is if you stop and think to yourself and reflect to yourself, hey, I honor myself. I understand what I'm going through. I appreciate myself. I feel like I'm worthy and valuable, right? And you give that to yourself, and that you boost yourself up in that way, then the possibility of somebody not quite understanding what you're going through doesn't seem so daunting anymore, because they might not understand. But that's okay, because you've honored yourself, you've supported yourself. And if you do that, then you'll be more open to at least trying. And if you're more open to at least trying, then you might find yourself one day pleasantly surprised when somebody does respond in a way that's very positive, and somebody does respond in a way that's very understanding and compassionate. So that's the second tip. Start by supporting yourself. And the third tip is also start by giving. Start by giving. One of our hesitations to reach out for support again is, if you're like, man, I want to give to others. I don't want to be out there, looking for support. And also sometimes we feel like I don't want to be a bother to this person, or maybe you have somebody in your life that's supporting you, and you're like, I just called them yesterday. I don't want to call them again today. I'm gonna look like everything's messed up in my life. I don't want to just be such a bother. But you might have forgotten that, even if somebody's supporting you, you can also give to them as well. You can also give to them as well, even if it's just a smile. Even if it's just, you're going to ask them, how are you doing? How's your family doing? Right? Give them a little bit of care. Give them a little bit of love. And even if somebody, you're looking to somebody, say, I think this person might be somebody who I can turn to, I can share my struggle with, and they might be able to be this person who I can turn to in those moments of temptation. Let's say you haven't done that yet, but you can at least start by supporting them, by giving them a little bit, by sharing your love and your care for them as well. And if you do that, you will find more support for you when you need it, inshallah ta'ala. And the final tip that you can start with today to start cultivating that support in your life, that support network that is so important that you need to have, is remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always on speed dial. Now, I kind of described earlier who the ideal, what the ideal type of relationship looks like, with the open-mindedness, the compassion, right, and the focus on being able to talk through emotions. But at the end of the day, no relationship is going to be perfect, and no relationship is going to hand you everything that you need on a silver platter. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So while keep that ideal in mind and work towards that, recognize that while you're doing that, it's also important to know that when you feel alone, when you look at the contacts in your phone and you're scrolling through and you're like, man, I need to reach out to somebody, but I don't, I got nobody to reach out to, right? You just feel alone. Recognize even in that moment, you're not alone. You're not alone even in that moment, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who truly will be the person that we can reach out to, no matter when, no matter what's going on. Ultimately, He's our only perfect supporter. So keep that in mind while you work on cultivating your support network with other people, which is important not to neglect as well. So use these tips, inshallah, in order to start today cultivating supportive relationships in your life, so that in those moments of difficulty, you can find a source of comfort that will uplift you and help you reconnect to what truly matters to you, rather than ending up indulging. And what goes hand in hand, I want to share one last thing, with reaching out to somebody in those moments, right? What goes hand in hand with that is taking steps to calm yourself physiologically, and finding that emotional balance. Once again, the moment of temptation, you want to reach out, but you also want to connect to yourself as well in that moment. And we've got an exercise that we call Standing Strong that actually walks you through how to do that in that moment of temptation, so that you can stand strong. So before you log off today, I encourage you to grab that. The link is somewhere in the comments or in the description. Grab that so that you can get an extra dose. In addition to having somebody to reach out to, also be prepared with this exercise so you get an extra dose of protection for when those difficult moments come and when those temptations and urges start building, so that, inshallah, those moments of temptations can be turned into moments of victory, healing, and growth. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. I pray that you found this beneficial, and I hope that I will see you next time, inshallah, for our next episode of Kickstart Your Recovery. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.